Are you thinking about moving to Canada, and more specifically the province of BC? Or maybe you're just traveling here for a quick visit, but you don't know how to best prepare or what to expect when you get here? Well, the good news for you is that you're in the right place, because in this video, I'm gonna give you all the tips you need in order to be as prepared as possible before you arrive. So don't go anywhere. What's going on, guys? My name is Alex Dunbar and I'm a local realtor based out of the Greater Vancouver area here in BC. If this is your first time on my channel, I make weekly videos pertaining to the BC and Canadian real estate market, as well as showcase community tours across the Lower Mainland. So if that's something you're interested in seeing more of, and you want to be the first to know about everything and anything in my market, then I suggest you consider subscribing to my channel and hit the bell so you're notified whenever I come out with a new video. While you're at it, it would be great if you could hit that like button so the algorithm will push this video out to more amazing people just like yourself who want to learn more about moving to BC. But diving right into it, let's kick things off by going over some of the formalities of the province of BC and Canada in general. If you're watching this video, it's more than likely that you live somewhere outside of Canada, such as Asia or Europe. And I know from personal experiences that there are many differences between here and there, from the obvious things like languages and currency, and some of the less obvious things that I'm going to be covering in today's video. So let's start off by talking about the stores here. The typical hours for stores here are that they open at around 9 or 10 a.m. in the morning and they close around 5 or 6 p.m. in the evening. Many stores are actually open even later than this, and several even until 9 p.m. But in general, you can expect them to be open until at least 5 or 6 p.m. There's also no siesta in the middle of the day for those of you coming from Europe. You're still free to have a siesta of your own, given that it works with your schedule, but store owners won't be taking any naps during the day. Lastly, most stores are open on the weekends. As this isn't always the case in other countries, it's important to know that here. Moving on to restaurants, their hours typically depend on the type of restaurant they are. If they're fast food, they probably have long hours and may even be 24/7, such as McDonald's or Subway. If they're breakfast only, then they're likely open around 6 or 7 a.m. in the morning and shut down early in the afternoon. But if they also serve lunch and dinner, then they're likely to be open until around 9 p.m. And if they're a dinner only spot, they're likely open around 4 p.m. and close around 9 or 10 p.m. Additionally, it's important to know that if you are at a sit-down restaurant, there is an expectation that you tip your servers on top of your meal cost. This amount is typically between 15 to 20% depending on the level of service. Keep in mind, this is optional and not mandatory, but it is common practice, and you may get some rude glares from your servers if you choose not to tip. Next, let's talk about taxes. There are pretty much taxes on top of everything you buy that you see in the store. This varies by province, but BC is one of the provinces in Canada that charges two separate taxes. These being PST, which stands for Provincial Sales Tax, and GST, which stands for the Federal Goods and Services Tax. PST is 7%, while GST is only 5%. Most goods and services are charged both taxes, with a number of exceptions which I'm not going to get into in this video. Moving on, let's talk about prices, specifically when you're buying things at stores. So when you go into a store and you see the listed price, most of the time those prices aren't negotiable, especially if you're in a big chain store. For instance, something like Walmart or Costco. Unless you're at some sort of an open market on the streets, which are less common here in Canada, what you see is what you get. This applies to stores ranging from clothing to groceries to electronics and more. But as a rule of thumb, for your everyday purchases, assume that they aren't negotiable. Next, let's explore the languages. Canada has two official languages, which are English and French. However, outside of Quebec, not that many people actually speak French, so I honestly wouldn't be too concerned with learning it. For example, I had to take French in school up until grade 10, which is about 15 or 16 years old, and at that point I was required to take a language for my final 2 years of secondary school, but I was allowed to choose the language I wanted to take, so I took Spanish instead. So I can understand a few French words here and there, and maybe still string together a sentence or two, but that's about the extent of it. So just do your best to learn English, because unlike when we go to visit other countries and almost all the people there speak some English, you won't often find the opposite here. Next, let's talk about drugs and alcohol. In regards to what's allowed, both alcohol and marijuana are legal here, but that's about it. The minimum drinking age is 19 plus in most provinces, which includes BC, but it's 18 plus in Quebec and Alberta. You'll also be required to have some form of identification if you want to buy alcohol or marijuana, whether that be in a bar, restaurant, or marijuana store. You'll typically be asked to see 2 pieces of ID, and one of which needs to have your photo. So this could be a driver's license or passport, for example. Moving on, let's talk about Wi-Fi or wireless internet. I have some good news for you, because it's actually free in most places. This is true for most coffee shops, for example Starbucks, in malls, and in restaurants. You just need to find out what the network and password are. If you don't see it posted at your table or on the wall, you can always ask someone working wherever you are. From my own time spent traveling, I know that Wi-Fi often has to be purchased in many other countries. So this is a nice little added bonus for most of you, I'm sure. Next, let's talk about washrooms. Public washrooms are free. That's right. there are no washrooms that you're charged for. This was probably one of my personal biggest pet peeves when traveling across Europe, so I hope that those of you that have to deal with this on a regular basis love not having to pay as much as I do. However, if you are wanting to use a washroom at a restaurant, they do prefer that you're eating there if you are using it, but if you can't hold it, it's usually not a big deal and most will still allow you to. Moving on, let's talk about the money. If you haven't seen it before, Canadian money looks kind of like Monopoly money. If you haven't felt it before, it's tough to tear and you can even wash it. It's extremely important to know your conversions and the value of the money here, of course. So it's worth less than the US dollar, generally by around 20 or 30%. Currently, $1 Canadian is worth around 75 cents in American dollars, 60 Indian rupees, 5 Chinese yuan, and 50 Mexican pesos. I probably butchered the name of the Chinese currency, but you know what I meant. Next, let's talk about adapters for electricity. Depending on the country you're coming from, you're gonna wanna make sure that you have the correct power adapters for outlets here. All across Canada, we use either 2 or 3-prong plugs, also known as type A and type B. The main difference being that the 3-pronged plug is grounded while the other is not. Because of this, you'll generally see 2-prong plugs for things that require less electricity, such as a phone charger, whereas 3-prong plugs are used for electrical appliances requiring higher power, such as an air conditioning unit. If you're looking for a place where you can find these, I've left a link down in the description for a reliable and affordable set, so feel free to check those out. Moving on, let's talk about the weather. Overall, it's honestly kind of inconsistent. It can be either snowing or sunny on Christmas Day. You never really know. For instance, this year our summer started extremely late but went almost all the way until the end of October. It was crazy. But in BC, you'll definitely get the best weather compared to the rest of the country, especially if you choose to move to the lower mainland Greater Vancouver area. This is where you'll get the fairest weather year-round and the mildest winters, because in some parts of Canada, the winters can be absolutely brutal, with freezing temperatures and tons of snow. Additionally, once you reach the fall season around the beginning of October, it can often feel like you're going through multiple seasons over the span of a single day. You'll start the morning off in the cold and darkness with frost on the ground, being layered up in jackets. By lunchtime, you'll have to strip down to a t-shirt and shorts and you'll feel like it's summertime. And by the evening, you're back bundled up feeling like it's wintertime. And as you get later in the year, you might even have the off chance of snow. And that's about gonna do it for today's video. But if you do have any questions, leave them down below and I'd be happy to get back to you. Or if there's anything I missed that you think would be useful for any of those visiting or moving to BC, I'd love to hear what they are and I'm sure others would as well. So don't be shy and be sure to leave a comment. And if you did get any sort of value from this video whatsoever, all I ask is that you hit that thumbs up button. And if you'd like to see more videos just like this one and want to be the first to know about them, you should consider subscribing to my channel. Lastly, if you are considering buying or selling in the Greater Vancouver area, or you just want to talk about real estate, you can click the first link down in the description to book a call with me at a time that works best for you. Additionally, if you're looking to buy a home in a city outside the Lower Mainland, feel free to reach out and I can connect you with one of my trusted realtor connections across the province so that you know you're in good hands. Thanks so much for watching and we'll see you in the next video.